Welcome to Self Health. This is a Revitalist podcast. I'm your host today, Brian Hogan, and I'm here talking with Dave Schell. We're going to be talking about a few different topics regarding policing and mental health, not only for the officers, but also their interactions with mental health. So after this little segue, a brief break, we're going to get back and be here with Dave. So, hey, Dave, I gave a little intro there, but can you tell the people out there a little bit about yourself, maybe how you got involved with a company like Revitalist, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, my name's Dave Schell. I've been in law enforcement for 26 years. Just recently hung it up for good, for permanent sakes. Actually turned in some uniforms and bulletproof vests and stuff yesterday at the office. Big part of my life is finally over. Had the, I guess you could say, very fortunate to have got involved with Revitalist through some trauma in my life that no one else knew how to deal with.
Is that where you first met Katie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Had a conversation with her on the phone one day. Was referred to her by a EMDR specialist that I had been trying to deal with some trauma from work. You know, unfortunately, people lose insight on an officer and what they see and don't realize we see some of the worst things humans can do to other human beings. And we go from that call straight to another one and without an opportunity to just breathe.
What's what are the units and, the stations out there, what are they doing in response to that? Are there some initiatives that have been taken up more recently, or is it kind of a slow growing process getting those needs addressed?
Well, it's a slow growing process, and I'm going to put the fault on the officers on that. We believe we're Superman. We believe that the only thing that'll get us is a bullet, and that's just wrong. I was fortunate to work for the town of Greenville, and once my issue became apparent, they stepped right up to the plate to assist me, to give me the time that I needed to get healthy. Mm-hmm. Big props to them on that. But as an officer, it probably took me a year to get to that point.
Yeah.
I think until officers realize that it's okay to cry, it's okay to hurt.
I was looking at there's some immediately around an incident, what officers do, making sure that an officer that has witnessed an incident, dealt with somebody that was unstable, or maybe witnessed something like a shooting and things like that, about ensuring safety for their colleague, reaching out, providing practical help, offering to talk, doing those things. Is that something you experienced or something you had to develop on your own kind of when you were there going through those things?
I think it's a thing as unfortunately that officer involved shootings have become more rampant, and let me explain one thing. Officers are getting shot getting out of their cars now. Mm-hmm. They're being targeted. They're being ambushed. No longer was it you feared when you got the gun call. And you amped yourself up and you mentally prepared for the possibility of that. Now you drive around wondering when you get out of a car to walk into the store and get a Dr. Pepper or something. If somebody's
having
just
that target on your back.
It's no longer it's no longer about attacking the officer while he's just at work either. It's being done in houses now. I drove a car home. I worked a K-9 in the last two and a half.
You told me a little bit about your K-9 last time we were talking about
that's
that.
My boy.
You still have
I still got Grim.
Yeah, Grim.
But
how's he doing?
He's unfortunately, riding around on the back of a car for 6 years and doing the job that he did. His hips are not good now.
Yeah.
Decision eventually is going to have to be made to do what's best for him.
Yeah.
But I would say in the last 2 years, I had more stuff thrown at my car, parked at my house, thrown at my own personal vehicles at my house, constant trash and stuff.
Well, all that animosity that's out there, towards officers and everything. I know that's, some of what kind of led you down the path to where you needed some help. And then when you were seeking help that you found Revitalist, and you found Katie, and started to receive that help. Can you tell me a little bit about that process, kind of the hope that was built up, through a process like that?
Dude, I don't know if you call it luck. The grace of God. I don't know what you call it. How I was fortunate enough to get with Katie. And I started with Katie at Revitalist. It was 3 of us, or 3 of them plus me.
Yeah, small team.
Yeah, it was a very small team, which in my case was great because, everybody goes through a process of gaining trust with someone. A law enforcement officer will tend to push that to the extreme on gaining that trust. And especially when you're dealing with the type of innovative treatment that Revitalist offers, you have to put a lot of faith and trust in that person that's doing that because you're not able to defend yourself.
Yeah.
For that.
It's kind of a vulnerable situation.
Yeah, it's a very vulnerable situation.
We talked about that a little bit yesterday on the podcast. We were talking about kind of breaking down those barriers and those walls, and really having all your inhibitions are being lowered, all these things that are happening when you use something like ketamine for treatment. It can really open up a lot of vulnerability.
Yeah, I mean, it opens up the vulnerability, but let's be honest. You take me for instance. Only thing come out of my mouth is what I let come out of my mouth. Mm-hmm. And with ketamine, it didn't quite work that way. Stuff comes out of your mouth that's been stored in your head, whether you like it or not. And that was a change for me. It was something to where I wasn't controlled. Well, I never was controlling it. I was just burying it deeper in my brain. But with the ketamine, I think for me, what's huge about it is it allows me to process a lot of things and not actually have to live back through it.
Yeah.
I have ideas of what I did, but I just don't remember it. And that's a huge battle right there.
Yeah. How long did it take before, when you started those treatments, how long did it take for it to kind of gain an effect that you were kind of had noticeable symptom relief, things like that?
I don't know how else to say this. I had to pay for every treatment that I had done. Those treatments, unfortunately, still are not cheap. Therefore, what's one thing I was up front with Katie about, and she was with me, vice versa. You can stop them at any time you want to. Yeah. If you think you're wasting your money, you can stop them.
Right.
I've not stopped them yet.
That's the unfortunate nature of kind of how this was started and how it's going. Ketamine's an old drug. It's not an expensive drug. But the thing that's expensive is providing those services in a safe way, right? Making sure that we feel safe, that we're being monitored properly, all those things.
It takes a lot.
And that battle with insurance companies, getting them to cover it, has been one that every clinic has faced for, going on decades now.
Yeah. And getting back, I noticed the first day. I came out of it and I didn't know what was going on, but I knew something positive was going on. I knew it wasn't a negative. So, I scheduled the second one. Well, the second one became the third one. And, I did the first initial treatments, and absolute tremendous difference in my quality of life after completing that first cycle of treatments. What we've learned is that if you don't get out of that environment, then that's only going to last so long.
Yeah.
It seems to be on about a 6 week.
Okay.
About a treatment will generally last about 6 weeks, and the more you
Very
learn,
highly individualized.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the more you learn about your body and stuff, the more you start recognizing it and going, okay, I'm over the hump. I'm starting back down the hill.
Right.
And for me, for the longest time, I got over that hump, and then I would ride that hill like a sled in snow all the way to the bottom and crash before I went back to the top. Worst thing you could ever do. No reason to hit rock bottom when you don't have to.
Right.
So that was something, I learned, and it's something I very seldom do now, is let myself get to the rock bottom. I've been with Katie and Revitalist. Well, we argue over how long. I'll just say 2 years for now. I've made great strides.
Well, they're putting you to work now.
Yeah.
Giving you a little bit to do here and there, and
they are, which is great, because I decided not to be embarrassed about my situation. And if I've gotten help and it's made a difference in my life, then I think I owe that to everyone else out there that's struggling like I have.
I love that. Yeah. And that's, and that kind of gets to what I was going to ask you next about, what's your message to officers that are going through something like that, about seeking health? I know that there's a lot of stigma attached to reaching out and to being vulnerable in those kind of ways, but are there support groups that you've seen kind of come along?
Each officer's, it ultimately comes down to, it's a personal choice. It's a breaking point. I think our biggest thing we have to do is we have to make it as easy and confidential as possible for someone to come and ask for help. Most officers I know, not all officers, but most officers I know don't want a group environment.
Right.
It's hard enough to admit it to one person, but you definitely are not going to admit it to 10 people.
Right.
And you're definitely not going to admit it to 10 other officers sitting in that room.
Yeah.
And everybody struggles. The thing about it is, though, is law enforcement from the beginning of time, as far as I can tell, has always been taught, you don't show it. You don't show your struggle, You're there to help somebody. You're not there to let them see you be weak.
Right. It's not about you. It's about them.
It's never.
Right.
It's never. I don't think people, let me explain it to you this way. I don't think people realize that you can go to an accident and there can be a mother in the front seat, unfortunately, that's deceased, with a small child in the back seat still strapped into a car seat. You're there on that. You leave that. You're trying to get away from it. You're trying to just go somewhere and just sit for a minute and relax. And then all of a sudden you have a car in front of you that's weaving all over the road. Well, you have a duty to protect that person as well as society in general, and make sure they're not having a medical issue or driving under the influence.
Right.
You pull that car over. You walk up to that car, and they've got their cell phone out, and they're filming you from the time you get out of that car. And then they literally sit there and try to bait you into getting verbally abusive with them or something or other. And all you wanted to do was go process the fact that some little child just lost their mom. And then you're expected to sit there and take that from that person and put your best foot forward and smile at them and just make sure and try to get through that call and treat them with respect. because that's part of your job. People don't realize that officers deal with that on a daily basis, that people are out there to do stuff like that. And the thing is, it's no different than when somebody gets a speeding ticket. Maybe take the time to look and say, you know, he may be having a terrible day right now,
mm-hmm.
and yet he's still trying to be as nice as he can be to me. You know, it doesn't happen. You know,
a lot of times, you know, we talk about burnout, you know, and
burnout's real.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, we were talking with some guys here in the studio with us about, you know, burnout, and they brought up for medical students, for, you know, everyone kind of across the board, that fatigue, that constant fatigue that people, you know, go through, and officers have it, you know, just like you mentioned, to the nth degree, you know, when they're dealing with, you know, these tragic situations, and that burnout, you know, there are certain things that we know about burnout that we can try to incorporate. You know, can we do less time? Can we give time between calls? But like you're saying, it's not an option. A lot of times
really
it's not an option.
I mean, you know, the whole thing is your full intentions can be to leave that scene, and literally your supervisor can say, hey, go get you a drink. You know,
mm-hmm.
just sit down. You know, we'll cover your zone for a minute.
Yeah.
You know, here's the problem with that. You're still in a uniform. You're still in a car.
Right.
You're still going from point A to point B. A lot of stuff can happen between point A and point B.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there's just some days when it's your day that it's going to happen. You know, and we just don't have anything set up to give that officer an opportunity to talk about it, because it's just not something you do among your peers.
Yeah.
You know, unless you're real close with them. You know, I think it's why alcoholism is such a huge problem in law enforcement. You know, is because you get home and you kill it that way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you kill the day that way.
That, you know, again, something else we were kind of talking about in another episode, but it was, you know, the way we medicate, right? And then when we get home, we're looking for treatment, right? We're looking for some way to get away from what happened, what we did. Some people medicate with alcohol. Some people medicate with marijuana. Some people medicate with opioids, right?
Yeah.
And it, you know, what we need to provide is effective treatments that don't put us down kind of those holes that lead to addiction. You know, people can have a good time with alcohol. You know, you can have that. And then there's the other side of it. You know, there's where it becomes the crutch.
Well, it becomes drink to survive.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's drink to survive. The difference, I look at it, the difference on that, though, is if I go home tonight and I kick back 8, 10, 12 beers because it was a crappy day at work, I'm going to work the next day. You know, I didn't miss a day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, right now, you know, if I came to Revitalist, I'm missing a day. Right. You know, in my case, I always miss 2 days because I never worked the next day because I wanted to give it an opportunity to do what it needed to do. You know, I'm still at the stage in life where I have a lot of anger over the way mental health is treated in law enforcement and stuff, and the fact there's no recognition for that. You know, we've got 5,000 media members right now spewing their mouth about Tennessee fans throwing cups and stuff on a football field, and then there's a 2-sentence article in the paper about an officer being ambushed as he got out of his car and left a 6-month-old child and a wife behind in the state of Tennessee. But yet in the state of Tennessee, what do they want to bitch about? I'm sorry.
It's all right.
It's about some football fans throwing some water bottles on a football field.
Yeah, I saw that story.
Yeah,
and, you know, and me, I'm in Jacksonville, Florida.
Yeah,
so I mean, you know, the only thing that hits the headlines was that story.
Yeah,
you know, and you don't hear anything about.
I mean, when my question is when are people going to realize that, you know, mental health affects everybody. You know, it doesn't just affect homeless people or poor people.
Right.
You know,
mental health is health. You know, that's a big message that we try to get across. Just like we treat cardiovascular disease, just like we treat, you know, your kidneys, anything else that we're trying to treat. Your brain is an organ just like any of those, and it's actually the most powerful organ in your body.
Yeah, you know, I was talking to the HR lady for the town of Greenville yesterday, because Greenville is really working hard on figuring out the best way they can help support their employees with these type of treatments and stuff, because you know, unfortunately, you know, insurance still just is paying such a small amount on them. And, you know, I put it to them as me doing a ketamine treatment is no different than me rehabbing my shoulder.
Right.
You know, it's the same thing. I'm healing two things. I'm either healing my shoulder or I'm healing my brain, but both of them require healing. And we'll cover one and we won't cover the other.
Yeah.
You know, and their thinking is the same way. It's just, insurance is always going to fight you, so you know. But I think in this case, they're ready to fight that battle and help their employees out. So, you know, maybe that'll happen, and then that'll be a great talking tool for me when I talk to other departments. Say, listen, it can be done.
Yeah, increase that access.
Yeah, you know, it can be done. Because I'm going to tell you. The one thing we've learned in law enforcement, in my department and a couple of surrounding departments is one, officers are only going to drive so far because they're already embarrassed, you know, and it took them forever to admit that they needed help. And then two, they can only afford so much. You know, it's a job you didn't get into to be rich.
Right.
You know, so I think Revitalist is working hard on helping get that cost down, and they definitely are working hard on opening up more clinics available.
We've both been a part of that,
right?
Part of that process.
so that's outstanding, you know. And until you experience a visit at Revitalist, and I say visit, I mean you just go by there. It only takes about 5 minutes to see the passion that everybody working there has. You know,
that's what got me hooked,
dude. Yeah, and it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to go somewhere when you know that they only have one goal and that is to heal the brain.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we were talking just a little bit before we even got started about other things we do to kind of, for our mental health, to kind of, you know, process things and be able to, you know, kind of have some fun. And we were talking about esports, and we were talking about gaming. And I heard you're a Call of Duty fan.
Yeah. I'm a Warzone junkie.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I live on Warzone.
Yeah. How's that going? You got a good KD on there?
Well, you know, I hate to talk bad about a company, but when they won't put an anti-cheat out there.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
yeah.
I mean, you're getting aimbotted from halfway across the map. What are you supposed to do? You know,
I love that you bring that up, because it's it is, you know, I think they just implemented something, but
it's going to come out in the next game. So you know, that's another one of those things where it truly shows how the world is. We're bringing it out in the next game. So what do you get now?
So you buy
everybody and their grandma's cheating right now.
Yep.
You know, I mean, honestly, you're running
it all out of their system before
dude, I hate
the next
hackers.
thing drops.
Man, I mean, I just recently switched to PC from Xbox, and
I'm on PC too. I gotta get your gamer tag. We gotta play.
Yeah, dude. It can get rather. I can get a little vocal.
That's all right. Well, not on here.
No, not on here, but
but over the headset, I'm down with that.
Yeah, but you know, esports. You know, we were talking about esports and everything. It's amazing that nowadays, you know, you can get scholarships in it at college, And
it's a huge industry. They just had the World Championship.
Yeah,
Like League of Legends.
You know, you go to CDL, Call of Duty League.
Yeah.
You know, these young men are under contract for $100,000 a year, and then sponsors and everything else, and they deserve it because they got millions of kids watching them play.
Well, the reason I kind of brought it up too was that I was talking with Katie and Candy out front about some of the groups that are out there now that are working with mental health and esports. There's a guy, Edward Cleland. He does Mind Body Esports. He works with teams like 100 Thieves.
Yeah.
And they actually have these psychologists and psychiatrists that are working with these teams because they understand that these esports athletes are athletes. They need optimized nutrition. They need vitamins. They need, to limit their caffeine intake, all these things that when you start implementing those things, these teams are playing a lot better. They've seen that.
Oh, well, you take, you've got young men and women out there, in the 20 to 25, 26 age group, that are streaming 18 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
They're making their living off of Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
And then you read on Twitter where they're like, hey, I finally stepped outside after 2 months.
Wow.
They had literally, they literally stay inside playing and sleeping and ordering their food through Grubhub and everything else, and never stepping outside. And then you see something from them a week later, and it's, say a special prayer, just had a great friend commit suicide, because, they stay bottled up, they
call them, I was reading a thing about it. They call it like parasocial relationships, where they have, all these people that are viewers that are watching the one person stream. They feel like they have a relationship with that person. They're like, I know that guy. I know what he likes to eat. I know how he plays. I know this, but that person doesn't know anything about you.
Yeah.
And so these people that are fans of a lot of those Twitch streamers and everything are in this relationship that's one-sided.
Sure.
And sometimes they're suffering, just as much.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, because groups like that, like Mind Body Esports, they were looking at those things specifically and how do we address those things. I brought it up to Katie. That's what we're trying to do too. We're really trying to find out how, we can optimize, health in those categories. And I just wanted to, kind of get your take on it and what that looks like.
I think, you and I both, we have had a lot of discussions with Katie, and the one thing that you can say is she's not limited. She will go after anything if she thinks it'll help make a difference.
Yeah.
And
that's the biggest part.
Yeah. And, unfortunately, COVID's still around. And the one thing about the gamers is they always had all these big events and stuff where everybody would meet up and stuff, and because actually a lot of them do develop a great online friendship that when they were able to go to these events, they would all get together and hang out and stuff like that, and that's been taken away because of COVID.
Right.
So that shut them up even more into a room, and you've had some huge names in the Call of Duty League that have had to leave for like 4 or 5 months because they had to get their head reset because they were mentally exhausted, and you didn't see that 3 or 4 years ago. So
we're learning a lot about how nutrition and everything affects the brain, caffeine intake, what it's doing to your receptors and kind of burning them out a little bit. And when we have these kids that are out there where that's just thrown in their face constantly, how do we, the new performance enhancing drugs are Adderall and caffeine.
Yeah, G Fuel. Let's check another G Fuel.
Get another advertisement.
Eighth one in. Eighth one today.
G Fuel. If you're listening to this, we need advertisers. So no. But
honestly, honestly, but that's what happens, dude.
Yeah.
You get a popular streamer. Hey. How about signing on with G Fuel? You get their little fridge, a little mini fridge. That's G Fuel. I always got a can of G Fuel. Well, then you're drinking it. Next thing you know, you're up 18, 20 hours.
Right.
And
that can't be healthy. There's no way at all that's healthy for you.
Well, I know it's not healthy. I mean, you pull 4 or 5 straight night shifts 12-hour shift, 7 to 7. Dude, you're chugging bangs, you're chugging monster drinks. I mean, that's supper.
Yeah.
You know, because you cannot. In my job, in that job, you can't be tired.
You got to have that edge.
Yeah, if you're tired, that's a delayed reaction at that point, and a delayed reaction can cause death. You know, and you know, you don't know who bad guys are anymore.
Right.
You know, used to you always sort of had an idea of who a bad guy was.
Right. They're not wearing the black bandana. They're in the Wild West.
The bad guy's just walking down the street and walks by your car and pulls a trigger and keeps walking.
Right.
You know, and you never saw it coming. You know, it looks like your everyday mom, pa. You know, and you know, and you can blame a lot of that on mental health. But just people don't have any options. They don't have anywhere to go to maybe to stop those thoughts. You know,
for that outlet.
Yeah,
yeah.
You know, we're it's like Katie and I talked the other day. The playbook right now, especially even like for law enforcement, if we go on call and we're dealing with a person that's mentally struggling, we have two options. We can call them a med unit, or we can take them to the emergency room. Well, you know, everybody's seen the emergency rooms right now. It's a 6-hour wait.
Oh yeah.
You know, so
and that, you know, and we talked about that before too. You know, that being a first line for people, the emergency room is not a first line for people. Well, especially during COVID, during all these other things.
No, that's
kind of one of the worst first line responses.
We have no playbook.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
in Florida we have what's called like a bake rack. You know, where people go and they get picked up by the police. They're going mandatory 72 hours, you know, at the hospital, you know, if they're suicidal, anything like that. And really then after that, it's here's some options. See you later.
Yeah. There's no follow-up.
Yeah.
There's no,
and that's a big problem with it.
Yeah. And you know, the one thing I have learned personally experience and also just from work experience is, you know, a lot of times you'll take a medication, and while it puts you where you need to be, from your perspective, you're off. You're not normal at that point. You know, your normal is when everybody else is going, he needs help. You know, so it's hard to keep somebody that doesn't have a great support system in place. It's hard to keep them on medication, because that medication, while it's doing what it should be doing, they don't feel it.
That's very true. And, you know, and what, you know, what we're going to do here is we're going to wrap up a little bit. But Dave, it was awesome having you on for,
Thank you, brother.
this is one of our first podcast episodes that's going to be coming out. And we're going to have you back. You know, we're definitely, once that new Call of Duty comes out,
you know it, brother.
Need some input
Vanguard
about
Let's
what
roll.
you're doing. But you know, that was Dave Shell talking to us about mental health and policing. And, you know, we're going to have Dave back, you know, especially about some of the topics that we have about police, you know, police suicide rates being alarmingly high, you know, as of late. And then some of the things that, you know, we can do to reach out. Just, you know, as an ending note, do you have any other kind of final message or anything for the people out there? And then we'll get this one wrapped up.
Yeah, I two things. One, for all my fellow law enforcement brothers and sisters, don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be too proud to ask for help. You know, it's there. I promise you, there's somebody that can get you to where you need to be if you'll just ask for it. And for the general public, understand when you deal with that police officer, you don't know what he just finished dealing with. So always keep that in mind.
That's a powerful message, and we appreciate that, Dave. Again, you know, our podcast here is called Self Health. It's a Revitalist podcast. Make sure you give us a like, a follow. You know, we're everywhere you can find a podcast, and make sure you check out our Facebook pages. We have ones for each of our clinics out there, and yeah, again, that's revitalist.com. And I've been Brian Hogan. This was Dave Shell, and that's the end of the episode. Thanks.